Well, good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Stephen.
As we speak, the Senate has debated through the night the voting reform bill that's being opposed by Labour and the crossbenchers, other than Nick Xenophon, who reportedly appeared in his pyjamas at one point, and I understand you were there until at least 3 a.m. Observing the finery of the debate.
I was in Parliament very, very late, and there were all sorts of pictures on Twitter of Nick Xenophon in the corridor and looking fetching in his pyjamas.
Well, thank you. I won't go there now, but assuming when the bill goes through, is a double dissolution election a certainty now?
I don't think it's a certainty because the Prime Minister has to make a final decision. But I do think that everybody now on both sides of politics and in the middle of politics, the crossbenchers, expect him to go down this route, and you get the feeling that within the government, all the planning is in that direction. Right.
So we go to a double dissolution election, and we've currently got 8 crossbenchers other than the Greens. I understand that the Parliamentary Library has modelled the effect of the new voting system as if people voted as they did in 2013. Now, on that assumption, which is a big assumption, crossbenchers might, and I stress might, increase from 8 to 11. So might the government actually regret the decision?
Well, you would think that the uncertainty of what would happen with crossbenchers would give it some pause. Now, as you say, this modelling is based on assumptions that wouldn't apply in reality, but the message of the modelling is that the outcome in terms of a new crossbench is very uncertain. The quota is small in a double dissolution, and therefore even with a system which we will now have that pushes small parties and micro players out, some could still get through the net. For example, in Tasmania, I think most observers who are good on the numbers believe that Jackie Lambie would have a very good prospect of being re-elected, and of course that would appall the government. So it is a very uncertain path, and quite a bold path if Malcolm Turnbull goes down it.
Well, people presumably won't vote exactly as they did in 2013. This week saw a Fairfax Ipsos poll released, which gave the coalition a 53 to 47% lead on a two-party preferred basis, and that contradicts the earlier news poll of effectively 50-50. So I don't think anyone's seriously predicting a hung parliament, as in the Gillard years, but if Turnbull only has a slim minority, and if the Conservative warriors on the right of his party are returned, what kind of a ride will he have?
I think he'd have a quite rough ride, because the Conservatives are giving him a rough ride already. For example, they really have kicked up this week on the Safe Schools program and circulated a petition, which incidentally was lost in the process for a few hours, so the whole thing was a farce at one level, but serious at another. More than 40 coalition backbenchers signed this petition saying there should be a full parliamentary inquiry into this program. The government has yet to give a response, but this is a measure of Conservative discontent with Malcolm Turnbull, Conservative determination to say, you know, you will not ignore our thoughts, you will be reined in on certain things. If he was back in government with a very small majority after an election, I think that they would just be even more militant, and it would be very hard for him to have a free hand on issues that are important to him, for example, climate change.
And another issue which is exciting them is same-sex marriage. The coalition policy is committed to a plebiscite after the election. Is that something that the Conservative right would like to have happen, or might they want to actually drop the commitment to a plebiscite?
Well, they'd like to maintain their present ban on the parties supporting same-sex marriage in a vote, their opposition to a free vote and so on. The plebiscite, of course, was a compromise in the Abbott period, right at the end of the Abbott period, and they see that as the best option available. But if there was a plebiscite, or when there is a plebiscite, if there's a re-elected Turnbull government, then there will be a split among coalition members. Some will campaign against, some will campaign for. It'll be a quite difficult issue to manage within the coalition. Again, if Malcolm Turnbull had a small majority, he would be in a worse position in trying to manage that than if he had a substantial majority.
But if opinion polls after the election were showing public support for same-sex marriage or marriage equality, so that the right wing felt that actually the plebiscite would get up, would they be tempted to try and drop the commitment to the plebiscite, or is that just impossible given that they'll be going to the election on that basis?
I think it's impossible because it would be an election promise, and the Prime Minister's whole credibility would be undermined very early in the piece if he said before the election we'll definitely have this, and after the election he said, sorry, my party room won't let me do it. It would really be an issue that would have his leadership on the line.
It's happened before though.
Well, very strange things happen these days in politics to leaders, as we know, but at this moment you would think that plebiscite would be held with a re-elected coalition government.
Well, next week is Easter, so we'll have a break, but I look forward to talking to you after Easter, when it's really going to be a very exciting lead-up politically to the budget and then presumably to an election. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Stephen.